With the reinforcement of new arrivals to Easy Company, they set out to Holland for the liberation of its citizens, also known as Operation Market Garden. The premise of the operation is easier said than done, as they soon face heavy German resistance. Camaraderie, courage, and loyalty are the key ingredients to today's tale. It's a perfect example of the relationships built between soldiers and the line of duty. Today, we continue our discussion series on the Band of Brothers with episode 4, Replacements. This is a Comic Talkers production, and you are listening to Just 4 Flicks. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Patty B. With me, as always, is Mr. B Dog. Mr. Brandon, what's going on with you, man? How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about probably one of my favorite episodes of the series, which
Yeah.
is what we talked about replacements and the fact that this is focused around kind of one of the missions that I like to kind of study about a little bit in World War II. It's actually pretty interesting to see this episode in full and really see this is a good episode not only for the operation but kind of the psyche of certain soldiers in situations like this, and it's actually a really good episode that way. But before we go into history, Pat, what was your take into going into, like, in a short summary, what would you say is your take into this episode?
I think I think they did a really good job on focusing on a few characters, right? I do like James McAvoy's entrance into this episode, and we'll talk more about that as we go down the road. Bull's, you know, Bull's way of doing things and the way that he progresses himself as a soldier in this is something that is a big note to take away from this episode. But it's you see a lot of different character development. So
So before we go into talking about what we liked and disliked, I do have some history notes here so fans don't know what Operation Market Garden is, which I don't know why. They do teach this a lot in schools. They do teach this. If you play video games, this is a pretty big mark in World War II games, is this mission. But we're going to go into Operation Market Garden now. This was in 1944. The Allied forces actually came up with an ambitious plan and a very dangerous plan to cross the River Rhine in order to advance into northern Germany to shorten the war. The goal was, at this point, they take over the Netherlands or help liberate the Netherlands and liberate these 4 bridges and take control of them. They would allow the armored divisions of the British to enter northern Germany and end this war by Christmas. That was the goal for this mission. Well, it didn't go very well. Now, this also involved the seizure, like I said, seizure of key bridges in the Netherlands, and the units that were assigned, other than the armored divisions, were 101st and 82nd U.S. Airborne and the 1st Airborne Division from Britain. This mission launched on September 17th, and it is known to be one of the largest airborne operations known in history, even over Normandy.
mhm.
The plan eventually failed because of the pretty much like the intelligence unit from British command and its inability to reach, or the British X Corps, they did not reach the bridge at Arnhem. But it was also due to British intelligence and intelligence overall, because the fact being that they did not think there was going to be a lot of resistance. They thought, oh, there's not a lot of people here. We'll be fine. They had resistance pretty much everywhere they went.
Yeah, and you see that in the episode, right? I mean, it gets there's a lot of problems that were caused, I think, not caused, but like there's a lot of things that could have been, prevented, I guess you'd say, when it
Right.
comes and we'll talk more about it when we get into the actual part of how the Band of Brothers episode portrays it. So,
Right. And the last note I have here is trying to talk about what Easy Company's objective was during this battle or this operation. Their objective was to secure the bridges in the Sun area, mainly the bridges of Wilhelmina Canal. Crucial part of the 25-kilometer corridor between Eindhoven and Vigil. Now, let's go into what we loved and disliked about this episode, Pat. What did you enjoy about this episode?
Well, like I alluded to earlier, of like the big takeaways that I took, I like how amongst everybody, they were able to kind of explain the camaraderie between everyone, right? The relationship between everyone. It seems like this group of soldiers kind of get bonded much by the beginning of this episode to the very end of this episode. There's just a different bond there, right? I think we've hit a different level of, how, I mean, the show is called Band of Brothers, right?
Right.
So brotherhood, right? That's what we take away from this, the relationship. Another takeaway is Bull, right? Bull Randleman. I mean, this is his episode,
Yeah.
right? Every episode seems to have a focus on a couple different characters. We also see the um the introduction of three new people, right? We got Ramirez, Miller, and who was the other one? I always forget his name.
I can't remember his name either.
My head. I have it. I just the way Bull is there to help. He's there to guide. He knows he sees other people pick on, the younger guys, but like you were saying, we had talked about this episode off air before, and how you were alluding to, the one soldier brings to the private where he's like, you weren't there during Normandy, or you didn't earn that patch, or and then he brings it up to the other commanding officer, and it just seems like he's always there. He's always fair. He's there. He's always fair. That rhymes perfectly. As we'll talk more probably about the battle scene, because I think I really like the combat in this. I mean, as violent as it is, there's some really good shots, and just shots that stand out to me as far as that goes is the contrast of color, which I don't know if is it supposed to have like some kind of meaning to it, you think? Because they do it a lot throughout these episodes. And what I mean by like that is like when they go into the town and they're seeing, that town in Holland that's liberated, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's cheering and everyone's going. But what I noticed is like all the colors on their clothes are so pale, right? But then you got the colors of the flag, and then also there was like a couple people that were wearing like bright red, and I don't know why, but it seems like the way they edited this, they made that color stick out more, and then they made other colors more pale. So I don't know if that's supposed to have kind of some meaning to it, but like I just in this episode, it was very heavy because even in the battle scenes, you see that a lot. You see that in landscaping, but then you also see it we've talked about this in the last, what, 3 episodes we've done on this show of how Spielberg has a style of how he's directing these or how he's shooting these and how it's editing the color contrast, right? It was the same thing we saw in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
I, I, I just, I know I bring it up almost all the time, but it's like I just love it because it adds this melancholy tone to it, right? It adds like this very grim feel to it, but then there's when there's ever glimmers of hope in this show, you get some warm colors. I don't know, man. It's just
Like I see what you're saying there because I noticed that especially with the woman, which I feel like we are going to talk about that scene too, where they're shaving off the heads. And because you saw that like that, maybe there's something up with them or with them a little bit more. Like why are they targeting them? Which we find out is because they conspired with the Germans or they did stuff with the German soldiers that were staying there in that city. And I felt like that too. But then yeah, when you get the resistance leader to come out and talk with Winters and Nixon, you have those moments where it's like, okay, maybe that's not it, if that makes sense. Like maybe it's not that they're just bad people or something's going on or things like that. It's maybe just trying to understand everything. So I
I just
really don't have an answer for that, if that makes sense. Like I'm trying to like I thought that too, looking at it. I was like, That actually kind of, but you kind of get that pale sense overall.
Like, like the way I fast forward to it as I'm watching it, but like when they show like this one lady, and how ever all the girls are like kissing on the soldiers and everything,
Uh-huh.
just you watch in that sequence right there, you're gonna see like all these pale colors, and all of a sudden it's bright red. Or look at all the flags, and you can just kind of tell how all the flag colors are like enhanced.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just me overthinking stuff, but it's one thing that stood out, and it's one thing I like because they kind of do it seems like a theme of how they shoot this show throughout the whole show. I mean, you're
Right.
gonna get that, and I think that's it. Same thing with Pacific, right?
Right.
Pacific.
And now, something I want to bring up because I want to go back to kind of something you said because it was something I enjoyed. I did love Bull Randleman in this
Oh
episode.
yeah.
Like you said, this is Bull's episode. I love how every scene they kind of pan to how he looks or how he's looking
Mhm.
at things.
From
And
his point of view. I mean, I think that's when they focus on these characters in these episodes, right? It always they do a really good job of shooting it from their point of view almost,
yeah,
right? Everything they see, everything that they perceive, the way they act, all that stuff. But yeah, go. Sorry, go.
no, 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 you're good. Now, the other thing I really wanted to talk about was the NCOs and the replacements relationship. I think they did a really good job in displaying the psyche of what an NCO thinks at that point when they see replacements.
Mhm.
Like they even say it in the like every move. If you guys have never seen this episode, let me explain something to you. Every episode they start with the veterans that did serve in Easy Company during World War II. And when you have those moments where they're talking about their experiences and everything, you kind of have like a quiet moment there. You're sitting there listening to what they say, you're listening to what they experience. This is by far one of my favorites because it's a sense of they talked about when people would come and reinforce their company or reinforce their unit. And you have those moments where they said they didn't want to get close with them because they didn't, if they were off the way they would be, or could be, then you weren't close with them at that
Yeah.
point. But it's like that sense too, is that camaraderie between like Bull, um, Goraneer, Martin. Yeah. I liked all three of theirs relationship, like how you could see how they've come up together from the first episode to now. And
Yes.
having those moments where these guys have experienced a lot, that these
Mhm.
guys have sat there and did stuff. Cobb, I didn't like Cobb, but he did kind of give that directional or put the episode in the direction it needed to go in. And I actually like he was kind of like a plot device that was needed.
On the chessboard is what you're saying.
Yeah.
As,
Like
as far as the way this was structured.
when you really think about what happened here, and this is by far one of my favorite scenes of the episode, especially with Bull, is like you said, Cobb goes to Miller, who's played by James McAvoy, and pretty much tells him, "Well, why are you wearing this?" And or what's that? And he goes, "It's a Presidential Distinguished Unit Citation because of the drop in Normandy." And Cobb gives him crap by saying, "Well, you didn't fight in Normandy, so why are you wearing that?" And he was giving him crap, so he takes it off and walks away. Randleman picks it up and looks at Cobb and he goes, "You didn't find Normandy either." And I got shot in the leg before I could even jump. It's just like it was a plot device that was needed to get to that point.
Yeah. And
And
I think it just right there says so much about Randleman's character.
yeah,
Like the whole thing I alluded to with him being fair, right? Or
mhm.
him, at least looking at it from both sides. If he sees a wrong, he's willing to make it right.
But like,
Uh,
even when they dropped right in the Netherlands, you have those moments with like two of his rookies, especially the one that can't get his parachute.
mhm.
And he's like, "I'm sorry, Sarge." And he goes, "Don't be sorry, grab your rifle, let's go," kind of thing. Like you could tell how experienced he is and how he's trying to make these other ones think. Or even the scene where they're all in the trench when the lieutenant gets shot and Bull's up there and the guy, everyone's like, "What are we gonna do? We just need to stay tight." One of the rookies goes and Bull's like, "Yeah, kind of thing. You have those moments where you can just see that these rookies really don't know how to feel. They see all this happen. This is the first time they've experienced this. But like for the others, they have seen this. They have experienced this. So it's that sense of, yeah, they were all at that moment at 1.2 in the series, but at the same time, you have that moment where now these new rookies come in and are seeing this. And now
Mhm.
they're experiencing it for the first time. But I think I like that contrast that you
Yeah,
had the NCOs be experienced the way they are and they know what they've seen. And then you have the NC or the new rookies or new replacements coming in and they
like
are not experienced.
one more thing that I enjoy too is like even when they're doing the whole equipment check at the camp or whatever, I enjoy, Randleman showing his guidance as far as how he's supposed to put the equipment on. He sees him obviously struggling with the rifle. And then, Randleman just is just a boss, dude, with this. By the way, I love the whole cigar in the mouth thing, dude.
Yeah.
It just
Oh, I love
adds so much like aura to his character. Anyway, he's walking away, and then you got the kid just kind of looking back, and just the way he looks back, you're like, man, it's kind of like an appreciative, like, man, that guy, like, he didn't have to do that. He just helped me out,
it.
and that's just the kind of guy that Randleman is. So, and I think I don't know, man. That's just one of my. We could talk all day about how Bull Randleman is in this show because, or in this episode alone, because there's just so many good scenes that just betray on who that character really is. So,
Well, when
yeah,
you like a good scene, I think we should talk about is because Randleman is pretty much MIA after their little battle they have in one of the cities there, and you have that moment where you find out he's still alive and he's hiding right now because German forces have pretty much invaded the city. You have that scene where the German soldier comes into the bar. That is
yeah,
by far probably one of my favorite shots of the episode. Is that when you have him standing, like kind of like sitting on, like not sitting on top of him, but like kind of like standing over him a little bit, and you just see that blood on his face. It's like wow, like this is like
yeah.
again another moment of survival. It's a sense of it's either me or him, and at this point, you can kind of see like he doesn't take pleasure in doing it.
Yeah, and that's the same thing as like when that scene, that exact scene you're talking about, they have a really good shot of showing him on his knees, kind of killing the guy,
Yeah,
and the girl that's also hiding in the barn. You see it from her point of view, and you see Randleman look at her, kind of like, I didn't want you to see that. I'm sorry you had to see that, but like I'm also, like you said, you're fighting when you're in a life or death situation. You got to do what you got to do. Plus, he's kind of saving them in a way.
yeah.
So. Um,
It,
yeah, man. That whole sequence is great. It really is, and it just shows what a badass he is with the whole wound in his shoulder and everything.
yeah, he's just get it out, and
Yeah,
I'm just sitting there like,
poor guy, get it out of it. Yeah,
and he goes, my fingers, like, and then he just gives him his knife. He's like, just get it out, like it's,
yeah,
but like even going into his character overall, you just have those great moments with him. Like you said, you brought up that I love when Sobel comes back and he's now the newly appointed S4, which is the logistics officer. And he's just sitting there just looking at him with a cigar out of his mouth, like, what do you want? Like kind of thing.
yeah. Well,
And
so that was going to allude to one of my cons. I guess this is a funny con, but Sobel is one of my cons. Sobel's return is one of my cons. I just, God, every time he comes on the screen, he's so unlikable,
but
man.
you got to remember, and we've talked about this in episode one, the fact being that the trivia behind that was that even David Swimmer, which is iconic actor, if you guys haven't seen Friends, if you guys haven't seen stuff like that, you
He was
don't know.
really good in the FX OJ Simpson docuseries they
I
did.
forget
Or
he,
it wasn't a documentary series, but it was like a mini series they did on the trial.
yeah,
And he was really good at it. He was Robert Kardashian.
yeah, he, remember, if guys don't know this, he actually sustained from being around the other actors because he wanted that resentment feeling. He wanted that feeling of these guys resented him. And it did wonders because you wouldn't have thought, oh yeah, they're boozing buddies. No, they were just like, nah. we don't like you kind of thing. That whole scene when you see him driving in the car with Popeye, which Popeye makes me laugh every time he comes on screen because he's in there like, yeah, I just can't sit, but I'm gonna make the jump. And then when you see him running, you know which one he is because he's sitting there with like a little hop in his step because he can't run right. But it's funny to watch, but you can see the dedication of him. So I'm not making fun of him. It's just the way he's brought back is what makes me laugh. But like I agree with you. Sobel, I kind of liked him showing up, but I didn't like his scene he has with Malarkey. I didn't like that. I was just like, I know it's like that sense of like, oh, I'm gonna get back at these guys because they screwed me.
He always has to be an ass towards him, right? Like he always has to go out his way to be an ass, and that's what I didn't. That's what I don't like because Malarkey is a very likable character in my opinion. I especially his character development you see I think throughout all 10 episodes.
Yeah,
Especially what kind of name is Malarkey?
yeah.
Um,
Malarkey slang for bullshit. No, that's like just his moments with it's just like this episode, it just I wouldn't say cringe worthy, but it was like it was close to that point where it's just like, okay, knock that off. Like you don't need that. But again, I reading accounts of Sobel and stuff, that doesn't shock me that they put that scene in there. And that would have shocked me if Sobel actually did something like that. But that was one of the things I didn't enjoy. Eindhoven. I think we should talk about Eindhoven now. Eindhoven is the first city they go into in the Netherlands and pretty much help liberate it. But there wasn't really any action. You kind of just cut right to their celebration.
yeah.
And you had that moment where, and I know you and I have talked about it off screen about the scene where the woman's heads are being shaved.
Yeah.
And
Well, but I think there's a little bit of context to it too. Is before that starts, it seems like a very joyous occasion, right? The way the soldiers enter town, everyone's loving on the soldiers. All these women are kissing up on the soldiers.
Winters gets kissed, like yeah, that awkward
Yeah.
kiss between Winters and one of the girls there. It
I kind of love how they do that character pan off where they get to that one sergeant or the one soldier and he's making out with that dark-haired lady and then he's like come on we got to get out of here and then it sticks on the girl that he was making out with and then all of a sudden you see the group of guys grab her and then we're going to right where you're going to but
right.
yeah that was one of my cons. It kind of leaves you a little uncomfortable. I think you have a little bit more context as to far as why they were doing that.
Well,
Oh,
you got to remember though, this series was not going to hold anything back. It is
no.
going to make you feel just like they felt, and I think that was actually. I know it doesn't sound like it's a joyous occasion, but it was a necessary scene. It was something to show you this is what they went through. This is what they saw. If you don't have stuff like that, you're not going to appreciate the show. You're not going to understand what Easy Company went through.
Yeah.
I think that's you might not like it, but that's the purpose of it is to make you feel just like Easy Company did. Yeah, I remember that. So it's necessary. It was a like I wasn't bugged by that, but that's also me knowing it that actually is what happened. I can understand stuff like that. But like we were talking about too, this was common. If you were caught conspiring with Germans or like for the woman, like making love to them, things like that, you would be pretty much publicly humiliated. Now, if you were a guy, you were shot.
Yeah. Yeah. And they make that a point to say that in the show too.
Yeah.
Like oh they got off easy. And it seems like they kind of leave them in exile too because we'll see like a few minutes after this when the soldiers are leaving out of that village. You see that woman and her baby, and she's got her head shaved, and they actually stop and give her some food.
But you
Probably that's
see
where they
how
read
all
the
of them
Christmas
are
food
looking at him different.
provision. Huh?
Yeah, but like do you see how they look at her differently though?
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's really like it can kind of give you context in both ways. Like, okay, we're here doing our job to help liberate, but at the same time, it kind of gives you that feel of what war really is. and how others are going to view it than what they view it as. And I think there's a difference too, is that you can kind of see, okay, America, yeah, America was really one of the last big countries to enter the war efforts because they didn't enter till 1941. But you have that moment of these guys have not been around like Germany and Britain and all them have been. So for them going into a situation like this and sometimes not understanding what's going on, it actually is, I feel like it's a necessary thing. It makes it more understanding and it makes you feel more real. One of the other things I want to bring up, because I think this is the first time I've ever seen this weapon in the show, is the M3A1, the grease gun.
Is that
That's the
the
one Cobb has.
submachine gun? Or
That's
that's
what, yeah, that's one Cobb has on him.
okay.
The one that, because it was light, easy to use, easy to pack, and it literally looks like a normal grease gun. It looks just like one, and it works so perfectly. It's one of my favorite weapons to actually study and understand. That and the M1 Grand. The
There's a lot of 1928s in this too, isn't there?
um
The submachine guns. It might not be the. I know it starts the number. I'm just trying to.
M1 Thompson.
It's yeah, the Thompson machine gun. Yeah, but it's like the. It doesn't look like the Tommy gun. It doesn't have like the barrel.
No, it's just like a normal, just M1 Thompson. Mhm.
Yeah. I love that gun.
But you got to remember during the war efforts, and especially the grease gun, even though it was used in other fronts, this was mainly used for airborne because airborne they had it was easily lock on. That's where I like how like Cobb has it on him. Is Cobb has it like attached to his back because that's how easy that gun was able to be carried around.
Yeah.
It wasn't something like the M1 Grand where you're going to have to, like how Buck was showing Garcia, like put it in there and get that all done and you'll be fine. But it's actually really kind of cool to kind of see that more. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about, and I really do enjoy this, is the scene where the kid is given chocolate.
I thank you. I was just gonna get back to that too.
I That was such a heartwarming moment of the episode, and the
Very
fact
good.
that it was by new recruits as well, by two new recruits and one that's been around with Easy Company for a while. You get that sense of it's just like a heartfelt scene and a very dark moment
Mhm.
kind of thing. And well, like, what did you like about that scene, Pat?
No, I just like how, and then the villager was willing to go back into his house and he gives them some stuff in their efforts for helping liberate the town and they're coming out of their shelter. And then the whole boy thing with the whole he's never tasted chocolate before. And it's just like you said, it's just a very heartwarming scene. I do like the wholesome feeling you get out of it. There's not very many wholesome feelings in this show, so you got to take them where they are. And
Right.
I think they just did and I like how this is at night too. I don't know why. It just gives it a different tone when it's at night.
Yeah.
Uh, Seems a little bit more secretive, which I kind of like because that was those times, right?
Hmm.
Reason why they're hiding in shelter.
Right.
Yeah, I just this scene it's short and sweet and it's very good. I like it.
Now, fans, if you guys want to learn more about Operation Market Garden, of course, you can go read books about it and stuff like that. But there was another popular movie that came out too regarding Operation Market Garden, and kind of the context behind it is called A Bridge Too Far. This was a pretty well starred cast. You have Sean Connery, Gene Hackman, James Caan, Michael Caine. Like the list can go on and on and on. Anthony Hopkins is in this as one of his first movies. There's just iconic cast, but it kind of goes more delves into this operation and in some ways. And I love the fact too that they kind of do both fronts. So it's not just British, it's also American. So you kind of see the context of how Americans view this operation and the British planning behind it. Because that's one of the things they key in on here in this episode is that this was a British operation that we are helping. They are going to be the ones leading it. This is Montgomery's decision.
Mhm.
And which would lead to the just the intelligence behind it and everything, just really kind of failed at that point. It just was not really well planned out. And it got to the point where you're just sitting there like, there's nothing we can do, kind of thing. And they had to retreat. And this was real. This was a moment where you have this is by far it's one of the only missions they lost. But even with their loss, they still liberated a big chunk of the Netherlands. So, but at that point, now they have to restructure how they're going to do this because their plans to shorten the war is now not going to happen. Now they're going to have to figure out something else to do, which we get to episode 5 later on, which is kind of like, I wouldn't say a filler episode, but it's kind of connects this to their next big mission they're about to take on, which is the Battle of the Bulge, which is by far one of their biggest operations they've had. But going back to this, that's what I said, there's really not a lot of harsh critiques I have for the episode. I don't I this is by far one of my favorite episodes because I like the fact that it's not focused on winners. I like that it's not focused on any of the officers. I like it that it's focused on Bull. Like Bull being the main focus of the episode, I think is just a fantastic choice for this.
Yeah.
And not only that, the actor they have for it, Michael Cutlitz, I really enjoy his acting. I have never sat there and went, I don't like your acting at all.
Yeah.
He is in a lot of stuff. He's in The Walking Dead. He is in, I know this sounds weird, but he is in D3, The Mighty Ducks. He's one of the new Lex Luthors. There is just a lot about him that you can tell he really enjoys acting. And he just plays those roles so well. It's like they said, it's kind of like he's a man of few words. He doesn't have to say much to get his point across. You know, having those actors in, but not only that, having soldiers like Bull, I think it really could mean like a turning point for them because you really think about it, he doesn't have to say a lot to get his point across to his men. He
Mhm.
can just be who he is, and that's how it is.
That's what you're gonna get. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I said, like, one of the scenes I laughed at the most. Okay, you ready? You probably like this. Okay. And this is kind of a funny point for the episodes, beginning of the episode when they're playing darts. And he goes, what would I do without George Lutz? And he sits
I
there,
know.
oh,
I love, by the way, I love George Lutz. He's probably one of my favorite characters in the show.
I like Lieutenant Buck Compton. I enjoy Neil McDonough in that role. That dude makes me laugh every time I see him. He is just he is just become he's just become one of my favorite characters around. It's like, what would I do without George Lutz? And he just sits there and give me my bags. It's just one of those scenes. It's a heartwarming scene, but it's fun to have.
Yeah.
And and for him to be the lieutenant too, which you don't really see a lot like that, and you kind of see that what was it, in episode 1 or episode 2, where Winters kind of warns Buck not to get close to the NCOs or into the lower ranks as much. But you can still see he's still going to do it. Like he has a camaraderie for his men. He's
That's
going,
just kind of hard. Yeah.
yeah, he loves his guys, and you get that sense from him from the beginning. Now, like I said, Neil McDonough, I've been a big fan of his acting for quite some time. So it's
Outfield days.
the Angels in the outfield. Yep, I
Hit mass, hit the mound.
hit the mound, and he sets, and he sets, and he sets again. Just throw the damn ball. Yeah, it's just those moments that just make you laugh. Yeah. It's just like he's just a good actor in anything he's in. And like I said, this is kind of one of the first episodes you really don't see a lot with Lieutenant Winters or Captain Winters. You don't see tons with him.
Don't.
He
This
he's there.
Yeah, well, it's like that for some shows like this though. Every once in a while you're gonna get an episode that because Winters, let's be honest, Winters is one of the main characters in this show throughout the whole show's entirety, right? So there's going to be an episode that gets out of there that's not going to really focus around them. This episode is meant for more background characters
Yeah.
and getting a little bit more perspective of their side, getting to know who they are. And like we talked about, it's not only just Randleman's episode. You get to see, the new guys coming in. You also get to see a little bit more Malarkey, and a couple more other guys. And Lutz is in it. This is for more of the background guys. Not you don't see Nixon as well as much too. You see Nixon and Winters, I think, just a handful of times.
Like, yeah, Nixon, he's got one of the more like scary moments of the episode because he does get shot at.
Yeah,
And like for him, it hits off his helmet and he looks at Winters and he says, You're okay, you're okay. Stop looking at me like that. Like it's just like get off me kind of thing. It's just like you can see their friendship really flourish in this episode too, more because you can see they care about each other. They're there for each other. And that I would say I agree with you with some of the others. I feel like with the new replacements and stuff, this was a good episode too because you can see it's like I said, we've already kind of said a little bit their respect for Randleman.
yeah,
And when he's found missing and Garnier's like, oh, we gotta, like he doesn't want it's like I love how he kind of like insinuates, like, yeah, we need to go out and try to find him, but then he doesn't go out with them.
hmm
And it's one of the corporals, and then the rest of them are some of the replacement, including Cobb. It's them all going out just to try to find him, but then meet resistance. They looking for them. They didn't have to fire off their weapon, but it was a sense of like, okay, we're gonna have to hold tight for a little bit because if we don't, we're gone.
yeah, yeah.
And I think it was a turning point for them too, because it's showing them like, hey, you know what? We're not going to leave one of our behind. But on top of it, some of these guys have never faced combat. So for them to go back out as brave as they are, it's again showing the respect and camaraderie they have with somebody like Randleman. And I think it's a great choice for them. I really enjoy this episode. I give this probably I probably give it like an 8.9. I really enjoy the setup in this episode. I really enjoyed because mind you, it's like when we get to next episode, and you'll probably hear me say it drags a little bit, but it's a good psyche into Winters. And but it does lead to two of my favorite episodes of the series, which is 6 and 7. And having those moments, I feel like with even Operation Market Garden, I think it was a great choice to have in this series.
hmm
Well, however would you rank?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the more I watch, because I watched this quite a few times. I think I watched this total of 3 times before we did the recording here, just so I can kind of get really refreshed on it, know what's going on. But I would say that I'm going to probably give this episode a solid 8.2. I think
Okay.
it gets at least an 8. Nothing wrong with it, really. Nothing too crazy with it. Uh, I might it might be one of those cases where I say give it a rating now, and then I probably wish I would have given it a higher rating as the more we do the rest of these episodes. But one thing I would like to do, and hopefully fans you'd like to maybe have us do it towards the end of recording this series, but we'll probably pick our favorite episode out of the 10. I'd like to probably do that once we finish this thing, which I've been enjoying doing with you. But yeah, I give this one an 8.2.
Yeah. I think this is a great way to end out the podcast, don't you think, Pat?
I think so.
Fans, thank you guys for listening. Let us know in the comments what you guys love about Band of Brothers. Let us know what you guys love about episode 4 entitled Replacements. What do you love about Bull Randleman's episode? What did you love about this episode? What did you not like about this episode? Let us know in the comments. You can check us out, J4F Podcast, on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can also check us out at Just for Flicks on Spotify and YouTube. And without further ado, my name is Brandon.
I'm Patty P.
And Patty B, take us out.
Thank you guys for everything. Thank you, B Dog. Thank you as always. Remember, we do it just for flicks. Away, away.